The space station was quiet, too quiet. Every person who worked there knew what was coming. They had known for 3 days, ever since the massive alien ship appeared near Earth's moon. Now that ship was getting closer and everyone was afraid. Ho stood at the back of the welcoming room. He was just a translator, nothing special. He spoke 12 languages and could learn new ones quickly. That was his only skill. He was not a soldier. He was not a diplomat. He was just a young man who was good with words. The welcoming room was huge. It had tall windows that showed the stars outside. Important people filled the room. Ambassadors in expensive suits, generals in military uniforms, scientists with worried faces. They all talked in low voices, saying the same things again and again. They have destroyed 17 civilizations. Their queen is called the Devourer of Worlds. We need to be very careful. Ho listened but said nothing. He watched Commander check her weapon for the 5th time. She was a tall woman with short black hair and cold eyes. She trusted no one, especially not aliens. Ambassador Wu Jin stood at the front of the room. He was an old man with gray hair and a kind face. But today, his face showed only fear. He kept looking at the door where the aliens would enter. "Remember," Wu Jin said to everyone, "we must show respect. We must not make them angry. The survival of Earth depends on this meeting." Ho felt his heart beating fast. He had studied everything about the Empire. He had read every report, watched every video, learned their language as best as he could. But reading about monsters was different from meeting them. The lights in the room changed to blue. This meant the aliens were coming. Everyone became silent. Ho could hear his own breathing. He could hear the nervous movements of soldiers nearby. He could almost hear the fear in the room. The great door opened slowly. The first aliens to enter were soldiers. They were tall, almost 7 feet, with dark blue skin and 4 arms. They carried weapons that glowed with strange energy. Their faces showed no emotion. They moved like machines, perfect and dangerous. Then came the advisors. They wore long robes of silver and gold. Their eyes were completely black, like deep holes in their faces. They looked around the room, studying every human like scientists studying insects. And then she entered. Queen Vila of the Empire walked into the room, and everything changed. She was taller than her soldiers. Her skin was pure black, like the space between stars. It seemed to absorb light itself. Her 4 arms were long and elegant, ending in fingers with sharp claws. She wore armor made of something that looked like liquid metal, always moving, always changing. But it was her eyes that caught Ho's attention. They were violet, bright like stars, and they glowed softly in the dim room. Those eyes had seen the death of worlds. Those eyes had ordered the destruction of entire species. Those eyes were the eyes of the most feared being in the known galaxy. Every human in the room took a step back. It was automatic, like an animal running from a predator. Even the brave soldiers moved away. Even Commander, who feared nothing, put more distance between herself and the Queen. But Ho did not move. He was afraid, yes. His hands were shaking. His mouth was dry, but he forced himself to stay still. He had learned something important in his studies. The respected strength. They respected those who did not run. Queen Vila walked slowly through the room. Her soldiers and advisors followed behind her. Ambassador Wu Jin began his prepared speech, his voice shaking badly. "Great Queen of the Empire, we welcome you to Earth Station. We are honored by your presence. We hope that this meeting will bring peace between our peoples." The Queen did not look at him. She did not seem to care about his words. Her violet eyes moved across the room, looking at each human one by one. Most humans looked away immediately. They could not meet her gaze. Then her eyes found Ho. He felt the power of her stare. It was like standing in front of a sun. Every part of him wanted to look away, to run, to hide, but he did not. He met her eyes and held them. 1 second passed, then 2, then 3. Something changed in the Queen's expression. It was small, almost impossible to see. A tiny movement of her head, a slight narrowing of her eyes. She was curious. Ho did the only thing he could think of. He bowed. Not a small bow, but a deep one, showing true respect. It was the bow one would give to a great leader, not out of fear but out of genuine honor. When he raised his head, the Queen was still looking at him. And for just a moment, he saw something in those violet eyes that surprised him. Tiredness, deep, endless tiredness. This was not the face of a monster who enjoyed destruction. This was the face of someone who carried a weight too heavy to imagine. This was the face of someone who had been feared for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be anything else. The moment passed. The Queen looked away and continued walking. The official ceremony began. Speeches were made. Gifts were exchanged. Everything followed the plan. But Ho could not forget what he had seen, and he noticed that the Queen looked at him several more times during the ceremony. Each time, her expression was the same. Curious, interested, almost hopeful. When the ceremony ended, the aliens returned to their section of the station. The humans let out a collective breath of relief. They had survived the first meeting. Commander walked past Ho and stopped. "I saw how she looked at you," said. Her voice was cold and suspicious. "Be careful. Monsters like her do not show interest without reason." Ho nodded, but he did not agree with her words. He had spent his life studying languages, studying how beings communicated beyond words. He knew what he had seen in the Queen's eyes. It was not the look of a monster hunting prey. It was the look of someone who was very, very alone. That night, Ho could not sleep. He kept thinking about the Queen. He kept wondering what had made her the way she was. He kept asking himself a question that no one else seemed to be asking. What if they were all wrong about her? He did not know it yet, but that question would change his life. It would change Earth's future. It would change the entire galaxy. But for now, he simply lay in his small room and stared at the ceiling, thinking about violet eyes that held the weight of 1,000 worlds. The negotiations began the next morning, and they went badly from the very start. The meeting room was large and cold. Humans sat on one side of a long table, the sat on the other side. Between them was a distance that felt much larger than a few feet. It was the distance of fear, of distrust, of centuries of violence. Ambassador Wu Jin spoke first. He talked about peace, about cooperation, about the future. His words were good, carefully chosen by the best writers on Earth. But when the translation AI converted his words into the language, something went wrong. The advisor sitting next to Queen Vila suddenly stood up. His forearms spread wide, a sign of anger. "You dare insult the Queen," he shouted. "You dare suggest that we need your help." Ambassador Wu Jin looked confused. "I said nothing of the sort. I only offered friendship." Ho, sitting far at the back of the human side, understood immediately what had happened. He had studied the language. He knew that their word for friendship sounded very similar to their word for pity. The AI had used the wrong one. More arguments followed. Every time the humans tried to say something positive, the AI made mistakes. Words were translated wrong. Meanings were twisted. What should have been offers of peace sounded like insults. Queen Vila sat silently through all of this. Her violet eyes watched everything but showed nothing. Her 4 hands rested on the table, completely still. She was like a statue made of black stone. But Ho noticed something. Every time the AI made a mistake, her eyes moved slightly toward the machine. She knew. She understood that the translations were wrong, yet she said nothing. "Why?" The arguments grew louder. Commander stood up, her hand moving toward her weapon. The soldiers did the same. The room was filling with tension like a balloon filling with air. Soon it would burst. Then Queen Vila raised one hand. Everyone stopped. Humans and alike became silent. Her power was absolute. With just one small movement, she controlled the entire room. She spoke in her own language first. Her voice was deep and smooth, like water flowing over dark rocks. Then she surprised everyone by speaking in the human language. Her pronunciation was not perfect, but her words were clear. "Your machine speaks lies," she said. "It turns peace into insult. It turns respect into mockery." Ambassador Wujin's face became pale. "Great Queen, I apologize. We will fix the machine. We will." "No," the Queen interrupted. She raised one of her long black fingers and pointed. She pointed directly at Ho. "That one," she said. "He will translate, only him." Every head in the room turned to look at Ho. He felt his face become hot. His heart started beating fast. This could not be happening. Ambassador Wujin stepped forward. "Great Queen, with respect, that young man is only a junior translator. He is not qualified for such important work. We have senior experts who—" "I do not want your experts," the Queen said. Her eyes stayed on Ho. "I want him. He looked at me yesterday without fear. He bowed with true respect. He will translate my words correctly." There was no room for argument. Among the Queen's word was law. To refuse her direct request would be a terrible insult, exactly the kind of mistake they were trying to avoid. Ambassador Wujin had no choice. He turned to Ho and nodded. Ho stood on legs that felt weak. He walked past all the senior diplomats, past the generals and scientists, past Commander who watched him with suspicious eyes. He walked until he stood in the middle of the room between the two sides. "I will do my best, Great Queen," he said in the language. For a moment, surprise showed on the Queen's face. She had not expected him to know her language. Then something else appeared in her expression. Was it approval? Respect? "Begin," she said. And so Ho began to translate. It was the hardest work he had ever done. He did not just change words from one language to another. He explained meanings. He provided context. When Ambassador Wujin talked about human values, Ho helped them understand why those values mattered. When the advisors talked about their empire's needs, Ho helped the humans understand the desperation behind the demands. Hours passed. Slowly, the tension in the room began to decrease. People started to listen instead of argue. They started to understand instead of assume. When the Queen spoke about resources her empire needed, Ho did not just translate her words. He explained that they had been traveling through space for thousands of years, that their home world was lost long ago, that they needed planets not for greed but for survival. When Ambassador Wujin spoke about humanity's wish to remain free, Ho helped the Queen understand that freedom was not defiance against her authority. It was simply how humans defined themselves. They could be friends and partners, but they could never be slaves. It was their nature. The Queen listened to every word carefully. Her violet eyes never left Ho's face. She nodded slowly as understanding grew. When the session finally ended, everyone was exhausted but hopeful. For the first time, real communication had happened. For the first time, both sides had truly heard each other. The humans began to leave the room, talking among themselves in excited voices. The advisors did the same, clicking in their language about this surprising development. But Queen Vila did not leave. Instead, she did something that made every person in the room stop and stare. She stood up from her seat, walked around the table, and moved to Ho's side. Then she sat down next to him, right next to him, so close that he could feel the strange coldness that came from her black skin. Ambassador Wujin made a small sound of shock. Commander's hand went to her weapon. The advisors froze completely. Ho himself did not know what to do. He sat very still, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. "Do you know what this means?" Queen Vila asked him quietly. "Among my people, sitting beside someone." Ho searched his memory. He had read so much about but this. Yes, he remembered now. His eyes widened. "It means absolute trust," he whispered. It means you believe the person beside you would never harm you, that you would protect each other with your lives. Yes, the queen said. For 300 years I have sat alone, no one beside me, no one trusted, no one close. She turned her head to look at him. Her violet eyes were softer now, not the eyes of a conqueror but the eyes of a person who had been lonely for far too long. Today you gave me something I had forgotten existed, she said. You gave me understanding. You saw my people not as monsters but as beings with reasons and needs. You gave us a voice. Ho did not know what to say. I only translated. You did more than translate, the queen interrupted. You built a bridge, and so I sit beside you, translator. I trust you. Do you understand what that means? Ho understood. He understood that his life had just changed forever. He understood that he was now connected to the most powerful and most feared being in the galaxy. He understood that some humans would see him as a traitor for this moment. But looking into the queen's eyes, he also understood something else. She was not a monster. She was a queen who had been forced to become hard, to become feared, to become distant. But beneath all of that, she was just a person who wanted someone to sit beside her. I understand, Ho said, and I am honored, Queen Vila. She nodded once. Then, for the first time that anyone could remember, the devourer of worlds smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it changed her entire face. And in that moment, watching the feared queen of the empire sit beside a simple human translator, everyone in that room knew that something historic had happened. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks passed after that first day, 3 weeks that changed Ho's life completely. He was no longer just a translator. He was now the queen's constant companion. Where she went, he went. Where she sat, he sat beside her. It was strange, terrifying, and wonderful all at the same time. The other humans on the station did not know what to think of him anymore. Some looked at him with respect. They saw him as a bridge between two species, a hero who was helping to prevent war. But others looked at him with suspicion and even hatred. They whispered behind his back. He has forgotten his own kind. The alien has put something in his mind. He is a traitor. Ho tried to ignore these words, but they hurt. He was not a traitor. He was doing what he believed was right. He was building trust between humans and one conversation at a time. The queen requested his presence every day. They would meet in a special room that had been prepared for her. It had no windows, and the lights were kept dim because bright light hurt eyes. The air was cooler than humans liked, but Ho got used to it. At first, they talked only about the negotiations, trade agreements, border definitions, technology sharing. All the boring but important things that diplomats cared about. But slowly, their conversations began to change. One evening, as they sat together in the dim room, Queen Vila asked him a question that surprised him. Do you have family, translator? Ho nodded. My mother lives in Korea on Earth. My father died when I was young. I have a younger sister named. She is studying to become a doctor. Tell me about them. And so Ho told her. He talked about his mother's cooking, about how she made the best soup he had ever tasted. He talked about his sister's dreams, about how she wanted to help people. He talked about his father, how he had been a teacher who loved books and languages, and how losing him had made Ho want to study languages too. The queen listened to every word. She did not interrupt, did not judge. She simply listened, and her violet eyes showed something that Ho was starting to recognize. Longing, deep, painful longing. Do you have family? Ho asked when he finished. For a long moment the queen did not answer. Her 4 hands rested in her lap, fingers intertwined. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. I had a family once, long ago, before I became queen. She paused. I had a mother who sang to me, a father who taught me to fight, brothers and sisters who played with me in the gardens of our home world. What happened to them? The hollow happened. The word hung in the air like a dark cloud. Ho had heard this word before in transmissions, but no one knew what it meant. "What is the hollow?" he asked. Queen Vila stood up and walked to the wall. She pressed her black hand against it, and suddenly the wall came alive with images, stars, planets, galaxies. A map of the known universe appeared before them. "The hollow is darkness," she said. "Not the darkness of space, but something far worse. It is a force that lives in the center of the galaxy. It consumes everything it touches. Stars, planets, entire civilizations. Nothing survives the hollow." She pointed to a region on the map. Where there should have been stars, there was only black emptiness. "This is where my home world was," she said. "A beautiful planet with blue oceans and golden forests. Millions of my people lived there. We were happy. We were peaceful." Her voice became harder. "The hollow came without warning. We watched it eat our sun. We watched it swallow our world. My family stayed behind to help others escape. They told me to run. I was young then, barely an adult. I ran." She turned to face Ho. In her violet eyes, he saw pain that was hundreds of years old. "I ran and they died. Everyone I loved, everyone I knew was eaten by the darkness. I survived because I was a coward." "That is not cowardice," Ho said quickly. "They wanted you to live. They gave their lives so you could." "So I could what?" The queen's voice was bitter. "So I could spend the next 300 years fighting, conquering, making other species fear me as much as I fear the hollow." She walked back to her seat and sat down heavily. For the first time she looked old, tired, broken. "You wonder why my people conquer worlds," she said. "It is not because we enjoy it. It is because we must. The hollow grows stronger every year. It expands, eating more and more of the galaxy. We gather civilizations together because together we might have a chance to fight it. Apart, we will all be destroyed." Ho understood now. They were not evil conquerors. They were refugees. They were survivors trying to build an army large enough to fight an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat. "The 17 civilizations you conquered," he said slowly, "they are not slaves." "They are citizens of the empire," the queen said. "They have rights. They have representation. They are protected by our military. Yes, we took their independence, but we gave them survival. When the hollow comes, they will not face it alone." "Why have you not told humanity this?" The queen laughed, but there was no joy in it. "Would you have believed me? If I had arrived at your station and said that I come in peace, that I need your help to fight cosmic darkness, would anyone have listened? No, your leaders would have thought it was a trick. They would have suspected a trap." She was right, and Ho knew it. Humans were suspicious creatures. They would not have believed such a story without proof. "Why are you telling me?" he asked. "Because you asked." She looked at him with those violet eyes. "Because you sit beside me and see a person, not a monster. Because you listen without judgment. In 300 years, you are the first being to treat me as anything other than a weapon or a threat." Ho felt the weight of her words. He was just a translator, a young man with no special power or position. Yet somehow, he had become the confidant of a queen who ruled an empire spanning dozens of star systems. "I will help you," he said. "I will help you make humanity understand. It will not be easy. Your people fear us. Fear can be overcome. I was afraid of you when we first met. I am not afraid anymore." The queen studied his face for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out with one of her black hands and gently touched his shoulder. "You are a strange human, Ho," she said. "In my long life I have met warriors and kings, scientists and prophets, but I have never met anyone like you. Is that a good thing?" "Yes," she said simply, "it is the best thing." They sat together in comfortable silence after that. Two beings from different worlds, different species, different histories. Yet in that dim room they had found something precious. Understanding, connection, trust. Outside that room, problems were growing. Commander was watching Ho with increasing suspicion. She had begun talking to other officers about the danger of having a human so close to the alien queen. She believed Ho was being manipulated, that his mind was being controlled by technology. But Ho did not know this yet. For now, he only knew that he had found a friend in the most unexpected place, a friend who carried the weight of worlds on her shoulders. And he decided, in that quiet moment, that he would do everything in his power to help carry that weight, even if it cost him everything. Deep in the station, in rooms that were not on any official map, a group of humans gathered in secret. They called themselves the True Earth Council, and they believed they were humanity's last hope. General was their leader. He was an old man with a face and cold eyes. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before humans ever knew aliens existed. He had lost friends, soldiers, and pieces of his own body in those wars. He trusted no one who was not human. "The Queen must die," he said to the group. "It is the only way to protect Earth." The others nodded. There were 12 of them in the room. Some were military officers, some were politicians. One was even a scientist who had helped build the station. They came from different countries and different backgrounds, but they all shared the same fear. Fear of Queen Vila. Fear of what would happen if humans became part of her empire. "The Unity Summit is in 5 days, General continued. Leaders from all major Earth nations will be present. The Queen will be there to sign the Alliance Treaty. That is when we strike." A woman named Dr. Park raised her hand. She was the scientist, a small woman with glasses and nervous hands. "How do we kill her? They are incredibly strong. Their skin is like armor. Normal weapons cannot hurt them." General smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We have developed something special. A neural disruptor designed specifically for biology. 1 blast will paralyze her, 2 will kill her." "What about her soldiers?" another member asked. "They will attack the moment we strike." "Let them," General said. "We have prepared for war. Ships are positioned around the station. The moment the Queen dies, we destroy their delegation. Then we send a message to the Empire. Humanity will never bow." The plan was mad. It would start a war that could destroy Earth. But these people did not care. They believed that war was coming anyway, and they wanted to strike first. What they did not know was that someone was listening. Was a security officer. His job was to watch the station and report any suspicious activity. He was good at his job, perhaps too good. He had noticed the secret meetings. He had wondered why important people were gathering in hidden rooms, so he had placed a small listening device near one of those rooms. Now he sat in his quarters, hearing every word of the conspiracy, and his blood ran cold. They were going to assassinate the Queen. They were going to start a war. They were going to destroy everything that Ho and the diplomats had worked to build. Did not know what to do. He was a loyal human. He served Earth. Part of him even agreed with General that they could not be trusted, but another part of him had watched the negotiations. He had seen how the Queen looked at Ho. He had seen the beginnings of real peace. Was it right to destroy that chance? While struggled with his choice, Commander was making her own move. She had gathered evidence against Ho. Not real evidence, but small things. The amount of time he spent with the Queen. The way he seemed to know things he should not know. The loyalty he showed to an alien instead of his own kind. She found Ho in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "We need to talk," she said coldly. Ho turned to face her. He could see the anger in her eyes, and he knew this would not be a pleasant conversation. "What about Commander? About your betrayal of humanity?" Ho sighed. He had expected this. "I have not betrayed anyone." "No," step closer. "You spend every day with that creature. You tell her our secrets. You have become her pet, her tool. You are not a translator anymore. You are a collaborator." "That creature has a name," Ho said, keeping his voice calm. "She is Queen Vela, and she is not our enemy." She has killed billions. His voice rose. Her empire has destroyed 17 civilizations. She is the greatest threat humanity has ever faced, and you sit beside her like a lapdog. Ho wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to explain about the Hollow, about the Queen's true purpose, about the darkness that threatened all life in the galaxy. But he had promised to wait. The Queen wanted to reveal this truth herself, at the right time, in the right way. "You do not understand," he said. "They are not what you think. There are things you do not know, things that will change everything." "More alien lies," spat. "She has corrupted your mind. She has made you believe her propaganda." "This is not propaganda. This is truth. If you could just listen." "I have listened enough." Turned to leave, then stopped. "I am going to report you to the council. I will recommend that you be removed from the negotiations and placed under arrest. You are too dangerous to be near the Queen." Ho felt fear, but not for himself. If he was removed, who would stand beside the Queen? Who would help her make peace with humanity? Who would be there when she revealed the truth about the Hollow? "Commander, please," he said. "I am not your enemy. The Queen is not your enemy. There is a real enemy out there, something terrible, and we need to work together to fight it." Looked at him with disgust. "You sound just like her. Maybe she really has taken over your mind." She walked away, leaving Ho alone with his fear and his secrets. That night came to Ho's quarters. He knocked on the door quietly, looking over his shoulder to make sure no one was watching. Ho opened the door. He recognized the security officer but had never spoken to him before. "What do you want?" Ho asked. Pushed past him into the room and closed the door. His face was pale and his hands were shaking. "I know I should not be here," said. "I am probably making a mistake, but I cannot let them do this." "Let who do what?" Told him everything. The secret group general, the neural disruptor, the plan to kill the Queen at the Unity Summit. He spoke quickly, his words running together, as if he wanted to get all of it out before he lost his courage. When he finished, Ho felt like the floor had dropped away beneath him. "They want to start a war," Ho said slowly. "They want to destroy any chance of peace." "They think they are protecting Earth," said. "They are afraid. Fear makes people do terrible things." Ho thought about Commander. Fear had made her see him as an enemy. Fear was making General plan an assassination. Fear was poisoning everything. "Why are you telling me this?" Ho asked. Was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke slowly, carefully, as if he was still figuring out his own reasons. "I watched you with the Queen," he said. "I saw how you talked to her, how she talked to you. It was not the way an enemy talks. It was not the way a master talks to a servant. It was different, real." He looked at Ho with eyes full of uncertainty. "I do not know if the Queen can be trusted. I do not know if peace is possible. But I know that murdering her at a peace summit is wrong. It is cowardly. It is not who we should be." Ho put his hand on shoulder. "Thank you. What you have done is very brave." "What will you do?" Ho thought about his options. He could tell Ambassador Wu Jin, but the old diplomat might not believe him. He could tell the Queen directly, but she might respond with violence that would prove the conspirators right. He could try to stop the assassins himself, but he was just a translator, not a soldier. There were no good choices, only dangerous ones. "I need to think," Ho said. "The summit is in 5 days, we have time." But even as he said it, he knew that time was running out. The seeds of betrayal had been planted, and they were growing fast. War or peace would be decided in 5 days. And Ho was at the center of it all, whether he wanted to be or not. The Unity Summit was the most important event in human history. Everyone said so. News channels across Earth talked about nothing else. People gathered in public squares to watch the broadcast. The future of humanity would be decided today. The main hall of the station had been transformed for the occasion. Flags from every nation hung from the walls. Hundreds of seats had been arranged for dignitaries, generals, scientists, and journalists. At the front of the hall was a long table where the treaty would be signed. Ho stood near that table, wearing his formal translator uniform. His heart was beating too fast. His hands were cold. He looked calm on the outside, but inside he was terrified. He had not found a way to stop the assassination. For 5 days, he had tried everything. He had approached Ambassador Wu Jin, but the old man had dismissed his concerns as paranoia. He had tried to gather evidence against General, but the conspirators were too careful. He had even considered warning the Queen directly, but had convinced him that this might cause her to attack first, starting the very war they wanted to prevent. So here he was, watching the summit begin, knowing that death was coming and unable to stop it. Queen Vila entered the hall with her usual power and grace. She wore ceremonial armor of pure black, decorated with silver symbols that told the history of her empire. Her violet eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail. When she saw Ho, she walked directly to him. Without a word, she took the seat beside his, as always, as it should be. The human dignitaries watched this with mixed reactions. Some nodded approvingly. They had accepted that the Queen trusted this young translator, and they were grateful for the peace he had helped build. Others frowned and whispered. They still did not understand. They still did not trust. Commander stood near the wall with other security officers. Her eyes found Ho, and they were full of cold suspicion. She had reported him to the council, but her recommendation had been rejected. Ambassador Wu Jin had defended Ho, saying he was essential to the negotiations. Had not given up. She was watching, waiting for proof that Ho was a traitor. She did not know about the real traitors hidden in the crowd. The ceremony began with speeches. One leader after another stood up to talk about peace, cooperation, and the bright future ahead. The words were beautiful but empty. Ho barely heard them. He was watching the crowd, looking for signs of the assassins. Where were they? How would they strike? He did not know what the neural disruptor looked like. He did not know who was carrying it. Queen Vila seemed to sense his tension. She leaned closer to him and spoke quietly. "Something troubles you, Ho." He did not want to lie to her, but he could not tell her the truth. Not here, not now, not with so many people watching. "I am worried about the future," he said. It was not a lie exactly. "As am I," the Queen replied. "But today we take the first step toward hope. Whatever comes after, we have tried." Ambassador Wu Jin approached the table. It was time for the treaty signing. This was the moment that would change everything. Wu Jin began reading the terms of the treaty. The Empire and Earth would become allies. They would share technology and resources. Humans would keep their independence but would join the fight against common enemies. It was a good treaty, fair to both sides. Ho translated each line for the Queen, as he had done so many times before. She listened carefully, nodding at each point. Then it happened. A man in the crowd stood up suddenly. He wore the uniform of a station technician, but his movements were military. His hand reached inside his jacket and pulled out a device that looked like a small metal rod. Ho recognized him. It was one of the people had described, one of General's followers. "Queen Vela," the man shouted, "this is for humanity." He pointed the rod at the Queen and pressed a button. A beam of invisible energy shot across the room. It hit Queen Vila directly in the chest. She gasped, her violet eyes going wide with shock and pain. Her body jerked as the neural disruptor attacked her nervous system. The room exploded into chaos. Soldiers drew their weapons. Human security officers did the same. People screamed and ran. Tables were overturned. The flags of peaceful nations fell to the floor. The Queen was still sitting, but her body was shaking. Her 4 arms hung limp. The first blast had paralyzed her, just as General had planned. Now the assassin was raising the device for the second blast, the killing shot. Time seemed to slow down for Ho. He could see everything with terrible clarity. the assassin's finger moving toward the button, the queen struggling to breathe, the soldiers raising their weapons to fire on the crowd. If the queen died, they would attack. If they attacked, the hidden human ships would strike back. War would begin. Millions would die. Everything he had worked for would be destroyed. He did not think, he did not plan, he simply moved. Ho threw himself in front of Queen Vila, just as the assassin fired the second blast. The neural disruptor was designed for biology, not human. It was much stronger than anything a human body could handle. When the beam hit Ho's chest, it felt like being struck by lightning. Every nerve in his body screamed in agony. His heart stopped. His lungs froze. He fell backward, collapsing into the queen's arms. The hall became silent. Every human, every being in that room stopped and stared. They watched as the most feared creature in the galaxy caught a dying human in all four of her arms. They watched as her violet eyes filled with an emotion no one had ever seen on her face before. Grief, pure, devastating grief. "No," the queen whispered. "No, no, no." Ho could not speak. His body would not obey him. He could barely see through the pain that filled every part of him. But he could feel the queen's arms around him, holding him like something precious, something irreplaceable. The assassin tried to run, but Commander moved faster. Whatever her suspicions about Ho, she was still a soldier who followed orders. She tackled the man to the ground and secured him before he could escape. Other security officers grabbed more conspirators who had revealed themselves in the chaos. General himself was caught trying to reach an escape pod. But none of this mattered to Queen Vila. She had eyes only for the dying human in her arms. "Stop!" Her voice filled the hall, louder than thunder. "Everyone stop!" And they did, and human alike froze in place. Her power, her authority, her sheer force of will commanded absolute obedience. She looked down at Ho. Tears, black like her skin, fell from her violet eyes. No one had ever seen him cry before. No one knew they could. "This human," she said, her voice breaking, "jumped in front of death for me. He is not even a soldier. He has no armor, no weapons, no power. He is just a translator who learned to see me as a person instead of a monster." She looked up at the humans in the hall. Her gaze was not angry, though it should have been. It was sad, disappointed, heartbroken. "You tried to kill me at a peace summit," she said. "You tried to start a war that would destroy both our peoples. And yet this one human, this brave, foolish, wonderful human, gave his life to save me." She held Ho closer, and her next words were soft, meant only for him but heard by everyone. "You said I was not a monster. You made me believe it. Do not leave me now, Ho, please. Do not leave me alone again." Ho tried to speak, tried to tell her that it was okay, that he did not regret his choice. But no words came. The darkness was closing in. His heart, damaged by the disruptor, was failing. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was the queen's face, violet eyes bright with tears, looking at him like he was the only thing in the universe that mattered. Then everything went black. The medical bay was the busiest place on the station. Doctors from Earth and healers from the Empire worked side by side, fighting to save Ho's life. They had never cooperated like this before, but no one questioned it. No one hesitated. Queen Vila stood outside the medical bay, watching through the window. She had not moved in 12 hours. She had not eaten, not rested, not spoken to anyone. She simply watched, her violet eyes never leaving the young man on the operating table. Her advisors had tried to speak with her. They had important questions about the assassination attempt, about how the Empire should respond, about whether war was now inevitable. She ignored them all. Ambassador Wujin came to her after many hours. He looked old and tired, his face full of guilt and sorrow. "Great Queen," he said softly, "I must apologize for what happened. Those people, the conspirators, they acted without the knowledge or approval of Earth's governments. They were afraid, and fear made them do terrible things." The queen did not look at him. Fear, she repeated. Yes, I know about fear. Please believe that they do not represent humanity. Most humans want peace. Most humans were horrified by what happened today. Finally, the queen turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable. I have lived for 300 years, she said. In that time I have faced betrayal many times. Assassins, rebels, traitors. My response has always been the same: swift, complete destruction. Burn away the threat, leave nothing behind. Wu Jin felt his blood go cold. Was this the end? Had the conspirators succeeded in starting a war after all? But Ho taught me something different, the queen continued. He taught me that trust is not weakness, that mercy is not failure, that sitting beside someone, equal and vulnerable, is braver than standing above them with a weapon. She looked back at the medical bay, at the doctors fighting to save a life. If he survives, it will be because humans and work together, because they set aside fear and distrust and did what was right. That is the future he wanted. That is the future I will build, even if it costs me everything I am. Wu Jin could not believe what he was hearing. This was the devourer of worlds, the queen who had conquered 17 civilizations, and she was speaking of mercy, of trust, of building bridges instead of burning them. You will not seek revenge, he asked carefully. I will seek justice, the queen replied. The ones who planned this attack will face trial, but it will be a human trial under human law. I will not strike back with violence. I will not give the fearful what they expected. Why? The queen smiled, but it was a sad smile, full of pain. Because he would have wanted it this way. The hours passed slowly. News of the attack spread across Earth and through the Empire. People waited, holding their breath, wondering if war would come. Instead, something unexpected happened. Queen Vila requested a broadcast to both species. Every screen on Earth, every communication device in the fleet, showed her face as she spoke. Citizens of Earth and people of the Empire, she began, today, some humans tried to kill me. They believed I was a monster who could only be stopped through violence. They believed that peace was impossible. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I understand their fear. For centuries, my empire has conquered and absorbed other civilizations. We have been seen as a threat, as destroyers, as conquerors. We have earned this reputation through our actions. Her voice became stronger. But there is a truth you do not know. We did not conquer for power or glory. We conquered for survival. There is a darkness at the heart of this galaxy, something called the Hollow. It consumes everything it touches. Stars, planets, entire species. My own world was destroyed by it. My family died fighting it. Everything I have done, every world I have taken, was to build an army strong enough to stand against this enemy. Images appeared on screens across human space. Images of the Hollow, the endless black void, the consumed stars, the destroyed civilizations. The evidence was undeniable. The Empire has been fighting this battle alone for 300 years, the Queen continued. We have lost much. We have sacrificed much. We have become hard and feared because we had no choice. But we never wanted to be monsters. We wanted to survive. We wanted others to survive too. Her violet eyes seemed to look directly at every person watching. Today, a young human translator named Ho nearly died to save my life. He had no reason to do this. He had no obligation, but he had seen past my reputation. He had looked at me and seen not a monster but a person, a lonely queen who had forgotten what friendship felt like. Her voice broke slightly. He taught me that there is another way. That trust can be stronger than fear. That sitting beside someone, making yourself vulnerable, can be braver than standing alone with weapons. He taught me to hope again. She straightened, and her voice became firm. I choose hope. I choose to believe that humans can be partners, not enemies. I choose to stand beside Earth, not against it. The conspirators who tried to kill me will face justice, but it will be human justice. I will not answer violence with violence. I will answer it with the mercy that Ho showed me was possible." The broadcast ended. Across Earth, people stared at their screens in shock. This was not what they had expected. This was not the monster they had feared. In the days that followed, Commander led the investigation into the conspiracy. She did her job thoroughly and fairly, even though it meant admitting that she had been wrong about many things. General and his followers were arrested and charged under human law. The Queen did not interfere. Visited the medical bay once, when Ho was still unconscious. She stood at the window, watching him breathe through the machines that kept him alive. "I thought you were a traitor," she said quietly, even though he could not hear her. "I thought she had corrupted your mind, but you were braver than all of us. You saw something we were too afraid to see." She bowed her head in respect, then walked away. The healers worked with human doctors to develop new treatments for Ho's damaged nervous system. Technology from both civilizations was combined in ways that had never been tried before. It was the first true collaboration between the two peoples. On the 6th day after the attack, Ho's heart began beating on its own again. On the 7th day, he opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was a dark figure sitting beside his bed, 4 arms, black skin, violet eyes filled with tears. "You are alive," Queen Vila whispered. "You came back." Ho tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. The Queen gently held a cup of water to his lips and helped him drink. "How long?" he managed to ask. 7 days. I have been here for all of them." Ho looked at her with surprise. "You stayed the whole time." "Where else would I be?" The Queen's voice was soft, almost gentle. "You saved my life. You changed my heart. You are the only person in 300 years who has sat beside me as an equal. Did you think I would leave you alone?" Ho felt tears forming in his own eyes. He had been ready to die. He had not expected to wake up. And he certainly had not expected to find the Queen of the Empire sitting beside his bed like a worried friend. "The treaty," he said weakly. "What happened?" "It will be signed," the Queen said. "When you are strong enough to attend, I will not complete it without you beside me." Ho smiled despite the pain. "You are very stubborn." "I am a queen," she replied. "Stubborn is our nature." They sat together in comfortable silence, just as they had so many times before. The machines beeped softly. The station hummed with life. Outside, stars shone in the endless darkness of space. But somehow, that darkness seemed less threatening now. Because two peoples had learned to sit beside each other instead of facing each other with weapons. Because trust had proven stronger than fear. Because one human translator had shown an alien queen that monsters could become friends. The war they had all feared would not happen. Instead, something new would begin. Something better. Something that Ho had almost died to make possible. 1 month after the attack, Ho stood before a mirror in his quarters. He was adjusting his formal uniform, making sure every button was correct, every line was straight. His hands were shaking slightly, but not from fear. Today was the day, the treaty signing, the real one this time. He looked at his reflection and barely recognized himself. The young translator who had arrived on this station seemed like a different person now. So much had changed. He had changed. A knock came at his door. He opened it to find standing there, wearing his security uniform. "It is time," said. "They are waiting for you." "How does it look out there?" Smiled, crowded. More people than last time. They all want to see the human who saved the Queen. Ho felt embarrassed. He did not want to be famous. He did not want attention. He had only done what felt right. "I am not a hero," he said. "That is exactly what a hero would say," replied. "Come, you should not keep an empress waiting." They walked through the station together. People stopped to look at Ho as he passed. Some bowed their heads in respect. Others reached out to touch his arm as if he was something special. He nodded to them politely but did not stop. The great hall had been rebuilt and restored. New flags hung from the walls. New seats filled the space. But there was something different about the atmosphere this time. The fear was gone. In its place was something that felt almost like hope. Ambassador Wu Jin met Ho at the entrance. The old man's eyes were wet with emotion. "I want to apologize to you," Wu Jin said. "You tried to warn me about the conspirators and I did not listen. Because of my blindness, you almost died." "You could not have known," Ho said. "We were all afraid. Fear makes us blind." "You were not blind," Wu Jin said. "You saw clearly even when the rest of us were lost in darkness. I am proud to know you, Ho. Earth is lucky to have you." They entered the hall together. Hundreds of faces turned to watch them. Humans and sat mixed together now, not on opposite sides. That was a small change, but an important one. At the front of the hall, a single table waited. 2 chairs sat side by side. And standing beside those chairs in her magnificent black armor was Queen Vila. When she saw Ho, her violet eyes brightened. It was a subtle change that only someone who knew her well would notice. But Ho noticed. He always noticed. He walked forward, past all the dignitaries and journalists, past the cameras that would broadcast this moment across the galaxy. He walked until he stood before the Queen. "You look well," she said softly. "I had good care," he replied, "both human and—" She nodded. "They worked together. They saved you together. It was the first time our peoples truly cooperated, perhaps the most important result of all this mess." The ceremony began. Speeches were made, shorter and more sincere this time. There were no empty words about peace, only real acknowledgments of what had happened and what it meant. Commander spoke about the investigation and the justice that had been served. She looked at Ho during her speech and gave him a small nod of respect. It was her way of apologizing for doubting him. Dr. Park, the scientist who had been part of the conspiracy but had turned against General at the last moment, spoke about the need for trust between species. She had helped expose the other conspirators and was now working on the joint human medical project that had saved Ho's life. Stood guard at the back of the hall, watching everything with careful eyes. He had been promoted for his role in warning Ho about the assassination plot, but he still preferred to stand in the background, doing his duty quietly. Finally, it was time to sign the treaty. Ambassador Wu Jin read the terms one last time. The alliance between Earth and the Empire, the sharing of technology and resources, the joint defense against the Hollow, the preservation of human independence and culture within the partnership. Every term was fair, every condition was reasonable. This was not a treaty of conquest, it was a treaty of friendship. Wu Jin signed first, representing all of humanity. His hand was steady now. He was no longer afraid. Then it was the Queen's turn. But before she sat down to sign, she did something unexpected. She walked to where the chairs had been arranged in traditional diplomatic fashion, facing each other across the table. She picked up one of the chairs with her 4 arms. She carried it to the other side of the table and set it down next to the remaining chair. Side by side, together. Then she looked at Ho and gestured for him to sit. The hall was silent as Ho took his seat. The Queen sat beside him, just as she had done so many times before. Together, they faced the crowd. "Among my people," Queen Vila said, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "sitting beside someone means absolute trust. It means you would give your life for them. It means you are no longer alone." She looked at Ho. "1 month ago, this human gave his life for me. He did not hesitate. He did not question. He simply stood between me and death because he believed I was worth saving. He believed that I was not a monster." She turned back to the crowd. "I was wrong about many things. I believed that strength meant standing alone. I believed that power meant being feared. I believed that survival required crushing anyone who might threaten us." Her voice softened. Ho taught me another way. He taught me that strength can be found in trust, that power can come from partnership, that survival means nothing if we lose the ability to connect with others. She reached out and took the treaty document. With one hand, she signed her name. With another, she pressed her seal into the paper. It was done. Earth and the Empire were now allies. Cheering filled the hall. Humans and celebrated together, embracing across species lines that had seemed impossible to cross just weeks ago. The galaxy had changed in this moment, and everyone knew it. But for Ho and Queen Vila, sitting side by side at that small table, the celebration was quieter. "You called what you feel for me trust," Ho said softly. "Among my people, we have another word for it." "What word?" the Queen asked. "Friendship." She considered this. In 300 years, she had learned many languages, studied many cultures, but this word in this context was new to her. "Friendship," she repeated, testing the sound of it. "What does it mean?" "It means that you choose to stand beside someone, not because you have to, but because you want to. It means you share their happiness and their pain. It means you are there for them, through good times and bad, not because of duty or obligation, but because you care about them." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Her violet eyes looked into his human eyes, searching for something. "I have never had a friend before," she finally said. "I have had servants and soldiers, advisors and subjects, but never a friend." "You have one now," Ho said, "if you want." For the second time in her 300-year life, Queen Vila laughed. It was a real laugh this time, full and warm, and it transformed her entire face. The devourer of worlds, the most feared being in the galaxy, laughed like a child discovering something wonderful for the first time. "Yes," she said when the laughter faded, "I want that very much." They sat together as the celebration continued around them. Two beings from different worlds, different species, different histories. They had found something precious and rare in the vast darkness of space. They had found each other. And somewhere in the galaxy, the hollow continued to grow. The darkness continued to spread. The great enemy waited to consume all life. But it no longer faced the Empire alone. It faced humanity too. And humanity did not run from monsters. They did not hide from darkness. They did not give up when the odds seemed impossible. They sat beside their friends and faced the darkness together. That was what made them human. That was what made them dangerous. And that was why, for the first time in a very long time, the galaxy had reason to hope. The stars outside the station window shone bright and cold. But inside, in a great hall full of celebrating humans, and two beings sat side by side. One was a queen who had conquered worlds. One was a translator who had conquered her heart. Together, they would face whatever came next. Together, they would not be alone. And that made all the difference.